have you all here on our channel. It is expected that you will watch the videos in their entirety and give comments at the end of each video. You can find other videos we have prepared in the description. One of Ireland's most populous and important cities is Dublin. A Gaelic colony appeared in the region in the 700s, and in 841 the Vikings founded a new town they called Dyflin. It sounds and looks like Dublin, doesn't it? Who first used the name Dublin, as opposed to the older Irish term Duibhlinn, meaning Black Pool in English, is a matter of some dispute. That Dublin was the major settlement of Ireland by the 12th century. Several decades later, at the turn of the 20th century, Dublin was named Capital. Where today's St. Michan's church sits was once a chapel constructed by Vikings who settled the region. The ancient Viking foundation was preserved for the construction of a Christian church in 1095. Its use has varied over the years, from a Christian chapel to a Catholic church, and even a Norse chapel. The building has had various modifications and has changed ownership several times. Preservation and expansion of the crypt occurred somewhere in the 17th century after its construction. The exact date of construction is still a matter of contention, with some accounts putting it even further back in time. Some claim to have felt the touch of a spectral hand, and tales of the dead conversing in the subterranean tunnels stretch back centuries. Older coffins buried underneath later cracked open from the weight of more recent ones, but for a long time people only thought of the crypts as a series of vaults housing coffins. In the ones that exploded, the preserved bodies within showed signs of mummification that had not been subjected to any kind of artificial preservation. Possible culprits for the mummification include the limestone walls of the crypt and the methane gas in the wetland under the building's base. The temperature seldom changes, and the air is dry. Nothing spoils in the crypt because of the damp, dark climate. Everything just dries up. The flesh on their bodies has long since become leathery. Some of their desiccated organs are visible, and some still have fingernails on. Since none of the more recent coffins have shattered, the locals are working from the assumption that all of the coffins hold preserved mummies. Because it is against the law to open a sealed coffin, no one knows if the more recent ones contain mummies. The Crusader is the name of one of the mummies. He is a tall guy whose broken legs are crossed, a feature presumably added after death when the corpse was too tall to fit in his coffin. Aside from the Crusader, there are two more mummies: the thief, who is missing a hand, and the nun, who is a little woman's skeleton. A bomb detonated in adjacent forecourts in 1922 during the Irish Civil War damaged the records of St. Michan's, which may have chronicled each crypt resident. Regrettably, the data were lost in a fire. John and Henry Shears, for example, were brothers who were beheaded after being drawn and quartered and hung. Claims of disembodied voices in the crypts have not been linked to any one individual. However, there seems to have been a significant increase in these accounts between 1996 and 2019, when vandalism occurred. Adolescents stole coffins in 1996 and removed corpses, including a child's. The teens were apprehended by the police, and the remains were returned to their original condition to the best of our ability. According to reports, in 2019, an individual by the name of Brian Bridgman reportedly gained access to the tomb, severed the head of the Crusader mummy, and made off with its head and another skull. Other artifacts were allegedly also severely damaged. Officials reconnected the skull with the corpse after 4.5 months of searching for the vandal. I couldn't discover any details on how the cops identified the perpetrator, but it is absolutely top-notch police work. Based on my study, it seems that St. Michan's crypts were formerly accessible to walking alone, but today you can only enter during specified hours, and you're required to have a guide. If that's the case, then it's understandable that people can't bring themselves to let the deceased rest in peace.